love of God, I was supposed to get robbed tomorrow! Damn it! Well, my evening opened up. What am I gonna do now? I can't go, hey all, Scott here. I don't own Lasagna World Tour. False alarm. I lost everything. Well, except what the robber decided to leave. I wonder why. This is too convenient. You know what I really need to do is buy a $500 console alongside a $2,000 TV set, buy a $60 controller to play this free game for $60. Oh, brilliant!
Error. Take it, you son of a bitch.
I'm not one to make bad decisions, I'm one to buy a ninth Wii U. So the idea of a person paying full price for a game you can get for $1 or free, I don't even think God planned that one out. Listen, gaming is bigger than it's ever been before, and I think a key part of that massive growth is mobile gaming. Playing games on your smartphone. It counts. I mean, based on how much playtime occurs, I think my mom is a bigger gamer than I am based on Scrabble alone, yet I'm the loser. I feel like core home console gaming and mobile gaming, however, are a bit too different. There's different design philosophies at play, and mobile games are all created to be played via just a touchscreen. So while I appreciate that mobile gaming has broadened the video game landscape and do enjoy a few smartphone titles here and there, I think home consoles and mobile work best when separated. Trailblazer. Every so often, game companies figure that because mobile games do so well, that must mean they should only make mobile games from there on out, or incorporate elements of them into their console games, or say AAA gaming is dying. All because Grandpa bought the Bird app for $1. Oh my god, the console game industry keeps flip-flopping between accepting what it is and trying to embrace mobile. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it works out, but most of the time it's like, hey, we're gonna put this game on mobile just because mobile is huge, even though it would do 10 times better on console because that's where the target demographic is. I'm not mad about it, I'm just really angry. But what about the inverse of that? What about taking a popular mobile game and putting it on a console? Whoever thought of that should get a Nobel Prize. In hell. Listen, I have a soft spot in my heart for, I don't know what else to call it, the golden age of mobile games. That period of time when the iPhone first opened its app store, come on, everybody remembers those commercials saying how there's an app for everything. When you get an Apple device with the app store available on it, man, I'd just scroll through that thing for hours, finding all kinds of fun free apps, or I'd scrounge up enough money to spend $1 on one. Oh, the quality was horrendous for many of these apps, but it was a fun era. There was this feeling that smartphone apps could do anything. I downloaded apps that said they were universal TV remotes without any knowledge on how they'd work. They never did. Then there were the one-time gimmick apps like, ooh, a lighter. Nowadays, apps all kind of feel the same, and games are mostly free, which is cool, but they're all littered with ads. You can't do anything without a 30-second unskippable commercial blocking your way. And many of the most popular games, they all blend in. Back in 2009 or so, the most popular iPhone games were more unique. They were experiences designed specifically for the phone, and I feel like that contributed heavily to their popularity. Angry Birds was the biggest phenomenon, though it was never a favorite of mine. It was fun, addictive, and worked perfectly with a touchscreen-only device. Stretch a bird, political violence. The game originally cost 99 cents on the iPhone, $1.99 on the iPad, and there were a few releases in the series. You had the original vanilla Angry Birds Seasons, which gave you constant updates at new levels based on holidays and the time of year, and Angry Birds Rio. You know, they made a movie based on this game. I never considered this to be a trilogy, more so just variations of the original Angry Birds, but it doesn't matter because Activision did. Angry Birds Trilogy. For only $40, you can waste 37. Yeah, physical releases of the first 3 games for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo 3DS. Strangely, Wii U, and PlayStation Vita versions came a year later, considering these were platforms that honestly worked better for Angry Birds with touchscreens and pointer controls. The main selling point of Angry Birds Trilogy is to play it on a TV. Was it worth it? No. Don't get me wrong, I see value in playing this game on the TV. You know, pass the controller around, try to beat each other's high scores, but it's just so clunky here. What used to be a game with the simplest control method imaginable now uses literally every face button on the controller. That is impressive. I'd say the Wii and Wii U versions make the most sense. This release is nice as it does preserve 3 of the biggest mobile games ever, some of which have been delisted and discontinued from the app stores. Yeah, I'll give this release that. It keeps the Angry Birds Rio dream alive. But no matter what, I can't look past the fact that while this is a collection of games, it's a collection of games that retail for $3 total, $6 max buying the iPad versions. In fact, Trilogy was missing some levels from the original game. Some exclusive bonus levels are included, but does that really matter with Angry Birds? It's not like these levels are vastly different enough to make you think, wow, new level designs? You don't really care about the design itself. The fun of new levels in Angry Birds is the idea you have a new box to check off. Ooh, a new stage to be and get 3 stars in? The bonus stages in Angry Birds trilogy. It's a fine release. I mean, the Angry Birds series are solid games. It would have been cool to get games made specifically for consoles rather than just the mobile games all over again, and the initial price point of $40, no matter who you were, was hard to swallow. So Activision listened, and they knew a trilogy of games wasn't enough for that price point. They charged more for one. Angry Birds Star Wars for $50, released 1 year later for pretty much every console at the time. I feel like they wanted to push to be there for the PS4 and Xbox One's launch, and they knew they could go consumers into buying into it. But the birds will be pissed. The fact they pretty much sold a single $1 mobile game for $50 when at the very least they could have included Angry Birds Star Wars 2 in the package, considering that came out a few months prior to this console release. I'll throw Angry Birds Space in there. It's pretty dumb. Like, who the hell would buy this? Ignore that question, but disregarding all of that, Angry Birds Star Wars does offer family fun for less than most AAA games. Multiplayer is now included, which adds so much value to the game, even though it's literally just passing the controller to the other player for their turn, which you never needed a multiplayer mode to do that before, but it's a fantastic addition to a solid game. That's how some reviews of this read, and I don't get it. To be fair, I think most saw this as ridiculous, and if it actually sold well, I think we would have seen far more physical Angry Birds releases by now. They were always banking on these games luring in parents that know nothing but their kid likes Angry Birds and maybe their kid's name, all without realizing you'd spend $90 on both releases when these would all cost you $4 on the App Store. But then again, it's good to know these games will forever be preserved via these physical methods. I'm sleeping well tonight! Alright, enough about the pissy chicken saga. Let's talk about the best mobile game. Cut the Rope hit the scene around the same time as Angry Birds, and I always preferred it. A very simple yet engaging puzzle game. Nab all 3 collectible stars by cutting the ropes, holding the candy to get it to the monster Omnom's mouth. You know, a bunch of 9-year-olds see this game and go, oh, my childhood! But no, guys, let's give Cut the Rope more credit. I mean, I think this is so much better than Angry Birds. It's so smartly designed, and unlike that game, I remember so many of these levels. The gimmicks they employ, the sound effects, music, the visuals, and animation are phenomenal for a mobile game released in 2010. Even in general, they're fantastic. And the fact this game could not work as well without a touchscreen, it just makes this one of my top mobile games of all time. If this was never a mobile game, it was just a DS game published by Nintendo, you would all eat it up. Every one of ya. But you know the old saying, if it's good, make it bad. Cut the Rope launched on the Nintendo DSi Shop channel in September of 2011. I should know, I bought it back then. I think you could all tell. I don't know, I knew I liked Cut the Rope on my iPod Touch and I wanted it on my DSi at the time, or Nintendo 3DS to be more exact. It is a pixelated, choppy as hell, dumbed down version of Cut the Rope. But it still Cut the Rope. They translated it over to the DS as well as they could, honestly. Going for the horizontal book style, it works well enough, albeit there's no reason to play this if you already had an iPhone or iPod Touch at the time. I think one of the reasons I picked this up was due to the lack of software on 3DS at the time, so I went, yeah, sure, this'll aid in my buyer's remorse. But of course, I could tell this was a heavily watered down port. I kinda wondered, why didn't they just make Cut the Rope for the 3DS entirely? Well, it's my lucky day 8 years ago. In 2013, we got Cut the Rope Triple Treat, a physical 3DS game. I thought this was an entirely new Cut the Rope game made specifically for the 3DS. Triple Treat is like Angry Birds Trilogy, 3 Cut the Rope mobile games converted to a video game system, in this case, the 3DS. The back screenshots have these 3D models of Omnom, and I thought like, okay, that must be a new bonus side game or something. Each game is played on the bottom touchscreen, with the top being a completely superfluous 3D model of Omnom. When it gets the candy on the bottom screen, it gets it on the top, so it's sort of like the top screen is an extreme close-up, though it's delayed enough to not make for a cool effect. This isn't a bad game by a long shot. It runs much better than the DSi version, plus you get 2 other games, a collection of promotional animations, leaderboards. I really do think Cut the Rope is a good puzzle game, but playing on the 3DS doesn't benefit the experience at all. If anything, it's worse due to the lesser touchscreen. For $30 at launch, again, it's a bit much. It's not like you wouldn't get $30 of use out of this thing. I mean, the back of the box boasts over 50 hours of gameplay. Yeah, I got 4 years out of my $10 box cutter. Does that make it worth $900? Sticking to the 3DS, let's try out Doodle Jump Adventures, also released in 2013 alongside a DS version, Doodle Jump Journey plus Doodle Jump for Connect for Xbox 360. Jesus, that was a big year for this stuff. Did everybody collectively go, let's make worse versions of our mobile games and charge 30 times more? Minds think alike. Doodle Jump is an endurance test. Tilt your device and see how high you can go. There's not much to it. This is one of those games you see all these adaptations and merch of because companies see it as a big phenomenon, when I think it did well because it was a simple game on the App Store during a time when people would download damn near anything if it was free. So of course it got a 3DS game and a Hot Topic t-shirt. Yeah, it's Doodle Jump, now taking place across 2 screens, which honest to God is kind of disorienting. Adventures refers to the campaign, which are literally just Doodle Jump stages with definitive ends, and that's it. Move on to the next one, basically the same thing. Is Doodle Jump Adventures worth it? Let's be fair though, sometimes the transition to consoles can go quite smoothly. Here we have Fruit Ninja Connect. Oh, he's not a ninja, he's a fruit ninja.
Oh, badass!
This is one of the best conversion ideas. Fruit Ninja was all about swiping combos of fruit while avoiding missing any and bombs, but Connect for Xbox 360 gives you the exact game, but you use your body now, karate chopping the fruit away. It's honestly one of the best uses for Connect, and is truly distinctive enough from the mobile release to be completely warranted here. Fruit Ninja for PlayStation Vita is literally the exact same thing as the iPhone release at the time, so bravo, it was a flawless conversion. But why do this in the first place? Oh. So, it's the exact same game, downloadable only, no new control options, featured anything, for $8. At least with Angry Birds Trilogy and Star Wars, you had the excuse of them being on home consoles for the first time. Wait, actually Angry Birds was made available on the PS3 and PSP stores separately as early as 2011. Almost seems like there was a push by Sony to have some popular mobile games on the PS3 because around this time, Jetpack Joyride hit the system. While overpriced and offering nothing new, these versions I think feel pretty genuine as downloadable games from this era. The same goes for Flight Control, which released on DSiWare, WiiWare, and PlayStation 3 only in Europe and Japan for some reason. No market for it in the US. In Europe, they won't shut up about it. Games like Pac-Man 256 released on PS4 and Xbox One after the mobile version without any microtransactions or advertisements, with controller support for just one low price, which this game works great in both contexts. As a quick pick up and play mobile game and as a fun content complete downloadable console release. It proves there's genuinely really quality stuff on mobile, stuff that can work just as great on consoles as well. Gameloft is the leading supplier of mobile games. They've always been that, just a D-grade Ubisoft clone who pumps out unoriginal, uninspired mobile ripoffs of more popular console games. of their games aren't horrible or anything, but they're just nothing sacks of not. And their premier series has always been Asphalt, basically your mobile phone alternative to Need for Speed. This is a long-running series, but who gives a The original Asphalt, Urban GT, and Urban GT2 released on Nintendo DS actually before cell phones, so starting with Asphalt 3, it became a completely mobile-focused series. The games like Asphalt 4 hit the Nintendo DSi shop, and Asphalt 6 the Nintendo 3DS as a launch title. Asphalt 3D. This was one of the first 3DS games I bought, mainly because it was the only game I could afford after already picking up Pilotwings Resort. After reading Oedipus Rex, I said I too should have a tragic ending. I remember not having any opinions on this game, and frankly, that's how I feel about this entire series. It's such a soulless car game. There's nothing unique about it. It gets the job done. Like if you have a pheromone release when you see a car move, sure. But Ridge Racer 3D launched right alongside the 3DS too, so it's like, why not go for that one? I'll tell you why, because Asphalt is always cheap or free. That's how they get you. Asphalt 9 was a mobile game converted to the Nintendo Switch, and it's more of the same, but this time it's free to play. Again, it's playable, it works, it does the job, but there's something about these games that always makes me feel like I'm wasting my time playing them. And I just beat Ride to Hell Retribution. Now why does GameLoft bring these games to consoles? Well, it's usually if they think they can fill a certain void. Case in point, Modern Combat Blackout on Nintendo Switch. This series is to Call of Duty what Asphalt is to Need for Speed. Who the hell likes this series? Put your damn hands down! If you want a Call of Duty-like experience on your smartphone, here you go. Call of Duty. Even the title is just a ripoff of Modern Warfare. And again, the games, they're fine, but they review surprisingly well, and I think that is entirely due to the fact that they're good for mobile games. But then when they brought it to Nintendo Switch, the cracks start to show with games like this in Asphalt when you put them on an actual console, and the only reason they put Modern Combat on the Nintendo Switch was due to the lack of Call of Duty. There was no legitimate game from the series on the platform at the time, and people wanted a first-person shooter experience like that to play. GameLoft saw the opportunity and quickly put a mobile game from 2014 on the system for $20. Take notes, Sophocles. It's not great, in fact, it feels pretty pathetic. I wish they'd put more effort into redesigning the menus of these mobile games when converting them to console. It's just so painfully obvious when something was designed for a touchscreen. And even the controls, while functional, I feel like they were designed to mimic regular FPS controls, but compensating for the clunkiness of the touchscreen, but then letting you use a controller for it. It's so hard to explain, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, many developers just port over mobile games to the Nintendo Switch, and it's always this really underwhelming feeling when it happens. The system was marketed as a home console, and I'll always see it as that. But when a great handful of games are just mobile ports, there's nothing special feeling about that. Being able to play a mobile game on Switch gives me no joy. There's no feeling of, look at what I'm doing, ma. To which he says, Scott, I don't care you're playing Shinsekai Into the Depths on Switch that's been on iPhone for a year. Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition was a mobile conversion of Final Fantasy 15, and instead of the actual Final Fantasy 15 on Nintendo Switch, we got this version, and I'm sad. There's nothing special about any of this, especially if these versions are replacing getting the traditional edition of the game. Then it's more of a slap in the face compared to not getting any version at all. And then the Pokemon spin-offs. There's a ton that release simultaneously on mobile and Switch, and they either feel out of place on mobile or out of place on Switch. And now to be fair, they normally launch on Switch first, but you can't fool me. Games like Pokemon Quest and Pokemon Cafe Mix were designed for mobile first. Just look at them. It's unfortunate because we used to get so many Pokemon spin-offs of all kinds for the Game Boy Advance, DS, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Wii, and now, while we still get some big boy spin-offs, a lot of Pokemon spin-offs are relegated to being free-to-play mobile games that get a half-ass Switch version to throw us a bone. But in reality, I think this just opens these games up to more criticism. Again, look at the differences between the review scores of Modern Combat on mobile and Modern Combat on Switch. You become a lot more critical when you play a mobile game on a console like this. But that's just a testament to how big mobile has become. It's impossible to ignore, and a franchise like Pokemon makes perfect sense for the platform. Mobile franchises have become so big that we end up getting things like Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition. Yeah, a mobile game turned 3DS game with an official Nintendo license on it all. I have no idea if I like how this game looks or not. Well, something like this is far more understandable becoming a retail game, especially considering it was made from the ground up for the console. Like VR spin-offs or stuff like the Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare series. Plants vs. Zombies wasn't a mobile game first, but it hit the platform way before consoles, and Plants vs. Zombies 2 is only a mobile game. I'll count it. To be honest, most versions of this game work fairly well. The touchscreen of the Nintendo DS, the version for Xbox 360 was very fine-tuned. It feels great here, but the third-person shooter spin-off, well, that does make a bit more sense for the system. But hey, what if mobile games had their own dedicated system? No. Nuh-uh. Christ, yes. Take me back to 2013, when every company was making micro consoles literally only capable of streaming Netflix, and even then, some of them couldn't do that. These $100 systems were based on mobile operating systems, so they'd have some mobile games retooled to work on a TV, and in their marketing, they basically said, who needs a PS4 when you can play Crossy Road on this $99 back scratcher?
Again, it can't even do that.
Here's the thing, I think many companies don't understand what makes mobile games successful and just think, oh, that means everybody loves this, put it everywhere. Listen man, I play Flappy Dunk on my iPhone all the time, but it's more of a nervous tick than a, oh, I love this game. I just want something to do with my fingers, stimulate my eyes for a brief moment. Does that mean I'm a big fan? No, it just means I have more to work on mentally than I thought. When Flappy Bird was the biggest sensation for no other reason than it was a bitch hard and all the high school students and coworkers were saying, hey, I got 4 points in Flappy Bird. No, I got 10. The developer removed it from the App Store afterwards, and when Amazon got the exclusive sequel, Flappy Bird's Family, for the Amazon Fire TV, who really gave a Mobile games are so much less engrossing than normal console releases. I play mobile games very infrequently, but when I do, I'm not super into them. I know they're just for quick distractions, even if they're legitimately well-designed experiences. So banking on popular mobile games to sell well in any context doesn't really work. Just because these games did well on mobile, it doesn't mean they'll elicit the same reactions on consoles. But that also holds true for console games making the jump to mobile as well. So how about if they jump back? Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. All the PlayStation 2 Grand Theft Autos were remade for mobile devices. Let me tell you, I bought Grand Theft Auto 3 immediately when that released on iPhone in 2011. I mean, that was a dream come true to be able to play a PlayStation 2 game on the go. And it 100% was that, but it just didn't feel right played on a touchscreen. Like an idiot, I proceeded to buy every Grand Theft Auto that released on mobile afterwards and always had the same reaction. But San Andreas has always been my favorite of the series, and shortly after the mobile release, a new version for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 launched, which was the mobile version. What the hell was this? I guess they wanted to do a remaster of San Andreas and just figured the mobile version was good enough, but like I said, when you do a mobile to console conversion, at least change the menus. It's so obvious when menus were designed for mobile. This just doesn't feel right. You converted a game that used a controller to work with the touchscreen, but then converted that version back to work with just the controller. I don't know why, it just feels weird. And on top of that, it's just not a good version. There's so many bugs and glitches, and the game crashes constantly. It just doesn't work well. I have no idea why they even made this. It came out after the Xbox One and PS4 for the PS3 and Xbox 360. They only remastered San Andreas and not the other games from that generation, which also got mobile ports, so this gets the same reaction nearly all these other games got from me. Why the Most mobile to console conversions inherently feel lazy, and that's just the stigma with most mobile releases. They're always seen as lesser than console ones, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they aren't. And hey, what else was I gonna do at the apartment today? Take a bath? The rumors are true. I was robbed, but if today taught me anything, it's that no matter how bad your day gets, you're doing better than the guy that bought this.
These are the employees' cars.
You can do whatever you want to something if it's on your property.
Legally speaking, that's not...
Let's go make a car.
What are you doing to my car? Stealing your hubcaps. It's fine. I'm the new CEO.
American Auto, January 4th on NBC. And watch 2 episodes now on Peacock.
She'd moved to New York to follow a dream.
Welcome to the Empire State.
And then she's the victim of a violent murder.
New York detectives have seen it all.
You want to give that family justice.
And only we can take you to the scene of the crime.
The person who did this murder was very familiar with the Opera House.
It takes a city of dreams to create these nightmares.
It was a world-famous pizzeria. Does this have something to do with the mafia?
New York Homicide, a new series. Premieres Saturday, January 1st. Only on Oxygen True Crime.
Chucky will return.
Welcome home.
Until then, watch the hit series from the beginning. Streaming now on Peacock.
Hail Scott here. I am not doing well. It's been a week since daylight savings date. Worst holiday. I've changed my clocks. I'm still not used to it. I hate change. I've had the same feet for years, thank you. I don't want to change, and I'm gonna stick to doing what I do best. Playing games that released in 2018 on the PS3. The next generation of gaming is upon us. It's time to upgrade. No! No! Yeah, upgrading can be scary. I just consider myself a big fetus with hair. See, some people are perfectly content with what they already have. They don't need to constantly buy new toys to feel excitement. They can just keep playing with their mud and grass while I buy my 4th new iPhone this month. They may be fiscally responsible, but who's having the real fun here? But when a new video game console launches, there's always those few games that make anybody go, I want it. I want the brand new console with the new controller in this game and a compliment. Maybe not the compliment. Buying new game consoles the second they come out is always expensive. You don't really get the early adopter discount most of the time. You pay more to experience something first, but we live in an age where the second after a fancy new product is released, it's immediately outdated. If you wait around for it to get cheaper, the next new thing will come out to replace it. Then you'll wait for that to get cheaper and it happens all over again. We're in an endless loop of spending too much money. So, yeah, I don't care about that fancy new console. I'll stick to my old one. It doesn't matter anyways, because all those new games coming out, yeah, they may be releasing for the new generation, but they're also releasing on the last one. Poverty wins again. These are cross-generation games that release not only for the current generation consoles, but the last generation consoles as well. Xbox One games also releasing on Xbox 360, PlayStation 4 games also releasing on PlayStation 3. And 2. But see, these downgraded versions can either be undeniably impressive or flat out terrifying. Sometimes they take a lot away from the big boy current gen versions since they have to create those games with the previous generation in mind. They can't go hog wild with the PS4 game because, remember, they're making a PS3 game too. Though sometimes the last gen version is made first and then a current gen version is created based off of that build. I think this is the most resourceful way to go about it. But of course, most of the time they just take the current generation version and cheese grate the out of it to fit on older consoles. Come on, video game industry, listen to me, white kid chair sits. So what defines a cross-generation game? Well, to me, I'm considering to be games that release on 2 or more generations of game consoles around the same time. It could be on the same day or within the first few months. This has been a standard for a while now. Back in the NES days, some games released between that and the SNES and Sega Genesis. But the NES version of a game was almost always completely different from the SNES version. Spot the difference. However, Nintendo themselves did a few cross-gen games, releasing on both systems. All puzzle games. Tetris 2, Yoshi's Cookie, Wario's Woods, these made their way to multiple consoles because NES users were worried they would have to buy a Super Nintendo just for Wario's Woods. Puzzle games aren't too graphically intensive and pretty simple overall, so putting them on the NES just made sense. Might as well support the system a couple seconds longer. It was usually the simplest games that made their way over to past consoles back then, like Frogger. The PS1 game came out, and right alongside it were versions for the Genesis and SNES. These were 100% not the same games. But see, the cross-generation games I like are the ones where the platform list is a nutritional facts label. It just keeps going and I just accept it. Games that appear on this many platforms are usually of the licensed kids game variety. One of the most notorious examples, Donald Duck Goin' Quackers. Game! 8 platforms. Now, to be fair, some versions came out 2 years after the others, and 2 of these are handheld variants for the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. But just the fact this game swaps spit with nearly every console from one generation, and then the next one as well, is just straight up impressive. This has always been my standard. Normally for the first few years of a console, some games will come out for the previous generation as well, that's to be expected, but when the shift from the 6th generation to the 7th generation was happening, the game companies didn't know when to pump the brakes. The Rat-Tat-Tooie video game. 11 different versions. Thank God, 2 people were scared they couldn't play. Licensed kids games in the mid to late 2000s were on as many platforms as it could possibly be on, and that's something we just don't see nearly as much nowadays. It's probably because back then the PlayStation 2 was still going strong. It was the most popular console of all time, and with the Nintendo Wii releasing to enormous success and having a similar power level, it just made sense to still produce versions of Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games for this lower level of hardware. And at that point, you might as well puke out something for the GameCube. So many game consoles were a thing at the time, and nearly all of them had good reasons for developers to want to release on them. The Xbox 360, the most popular HD system at the time. The PlayStation 3, not as popular and harder to develop for, but there was still an install base, and it had comparable specs to the 360, so might as well put your game out on that. The Wii, now far less powerful than the 360 and PS3, but it had the biggest install base out of all of them. The PS2 was still selling and still had active users, and could run games made for the Wii pretty well, but why not make a last-gen version of the title, there's still an active audience for that. And hey, the PlayStation Portable is sort of a portable PlayStation 2. It shouldn't be too hard to squirt that version on there. And at that point, I mean, might as well do a GameCube and Xbox version. A lot of users on these older consoles were kids. They can't immediately upgrade to the new systems whenever they want, so if you're making a kids game, making versions for these consoles, it just made sense. PC and Mac versions too, why not? Oh, and Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS games. They'll be completely different, but it makes the list funnier. It's all about making your game as accessible as possible. No matter what console somebody has, they should have the audacity to play your game. And one of the oddest examples of this initiative were the Burger King games on Xbox and Xbox 360. There was a promotion for a while where you could get these exclusive games at Burger King. They play on both Xbox and Xbox 360. You'd think that means, oh, these were just made for the original Xbox, and then the Xbox 360 could play the original Xbox games. The 360 can in fact play a good chunk of original Xbox games. No, there is a separate original Xbox version of these games and an Xbox 360 version on the same disc. It changes based on what you use it on, just like Bengay. Cross-generation games were just different back then. There were so many different active consoles running all at the same time that it just made sense to put cars on everything. Except the PS3. The PS3 owners, just admit it, you f***ed up, but there was a game that changed cross-generation games forever. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, released as a launch title for the Wii and 1 month later on the GameCube. See, Twilight Princess was initially revealed as just a GameCube game, but as time went on, its completion date lined up perfectly with the launch of Nintendo's next home console. Uh-oh! So why not prioritize a version for that console and have this big sweaty launch title alongside it? It was the same game across both consoles. I mean, the Wii was pretty much a GameCube on Adderall. It was more powerful, but is a rock really better than a big stone? Twilight Princess on Wii is in widescreen, which is nice, though so much of the screen real estate is blocked by a giant Wii Remote diagram, so it's sort of a half upgrade. You have forced motion controls in this version. Of course, it was the Wii and a launch title at that. They wanted to show off how the Wii Remote could be a sword. They could have let you plug in a GameCube controller to control it just like the GameCube version, but of course, they wanted Wii users to be Wii users. Now, you'd think with the GameCube and Wii being so similar power-wise that these would be pretty identical versions outside of controls and the aspect ratio. Well, consider that most of the population is right-handed. Link has prominently been left-handed in Zelda games up to this point. Swinging the Wii Remote with your right hand when Link attacks with his left would feel funny. So they decided to make Link right-handed in the Wii version. That was obviously done by just changing Link's model, right? Ah. It says no. The Wii version of Twilight Princess is mirrored. The entire game is flipped compared to the GameCube version. I mean, when the Wii version of this game was announced, did anybody say, yeah, I hope it's flipped? In all honesty, it's kind of cool they did that. It gives each version distinction while not necessarily taking away from either one. Cross-gen releases were always frequent, but Twilight Princess was one of the first big AAA titles to do so. A game you'd legitimately buy a new console for, releasing on an old one around the same time. This became a huge trend starting with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So many games released on those consoles in addition to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Though the difference was, there was quite a big leap in terms of power. Can PS4 games run on the PS3? Sure. Destiny, Far Cry 4, Dragon Age Inquisition, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, Assassin's Creed 4, Thief, Call of Duty Ghosts, Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zero, Battlefield 4, Need for Speed Rivals, Murdered Soul Suspect, Alien Isolation, Evil Within, Dragon Ball Xenoverse, Resident Evil Revelations 2, Battlefield Hardline, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, all released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. To be honest, many of these games worked on these platforms. Here I have Wolfenstein: The New Order for Xbox 360, coming on a whopping 4 discs. One of them we pop in just to install the game onto the hard drive. That's how you can tell if the game really wasn't made for the 360, when you have to install it. This is normal, this is normal, this is normal. Playing the game, I mean, it works, everything's all here, though when it switches from the super high quality cutscenes to the actual gameplay, it's so much more noticeable than on PS4. It doesn't look too bad, but it obviously doesn't look the greatest either. But if you only had an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 and wanted to play this game, it's not a bad option. I did get stuck on nothing here though, and then my bullets were suspended in the air. I could shoot them though, so false alarm. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain was such an odd game to be cross-gen. It released in late 2015, and being such a huge graphical showcase, you'd think they'd want to keep it on PS4 and Xbox One, but nope, 360 and PS3 versions with a mandatory install, thank you very much. Jesus, you can tell this was not made for these consoles. Just how pixelated everything can be. It still looks alright, so you can tell this game is not the most comfortable in this environment. And there's Watch Dogs. Oh, Watch Dogs. A game initially revealed as the showcase title for the next generation, a game that couldn't be done on the current platforms, an experience you'd have to buy a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One for. But it also runs on soap. 2 discs and 1 installation later, bam, it's Watch Dogs as God intended. Mediocre.
Hey, thanks for joining the Payne Motors quarterly earnings call. And now I'll turn you over to our new CEO.
The numbers last quarter were rough. Mea culpa. Well, not mea culpa, actually. Vea culpa. Let's sell the crap out of this car.
It looks like the car was assembled by a spider on LSD who also had bad taste.
It tested well.
American Auto premieres January 4th on NBC and watch 2 episodes now on Peacock.
She moved to New York to follow a dream, and she died very violently.
New York detectives have seen it all, and only we can take you to the scene of the crime. New York Homicide, a new series, premieres Saturday, January 1st, only on Oxygen True Crime.
Most of these 360 versions run fine enough. I mean, they're not as good as the next-gen alternatives, but if you really wanted to play these games and this was your only option, definitely serviceable. It's just odd seeing some games go the cross-gen route, like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Could a game like this run on the 360? Oh, no problem. Look at these clouds. Titanfall was a game that actually got people interested in the Xbox One initially. And it also came to Xbox 360 a month later. Well, that deflates a lot of excitement. Even when the game is coming to Xbox One, just knowing a 360 version existed, well, nice for 360 users, it kind of made you think, like, is this game gonna be a compromised experience on Xbox One because they had to consider the fact it was coming to 360 as well? The crew came to PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox 360. Not the PS3, I just thought that was kind of funny. Call of Duty Black Ops 3 made its way to the last generation consoles. Multiplayer only. These things are a stand-up routine. Laugh. Persona 5 released on the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 in 2017, which is insane. I mean, many times games release on older platforms like that due to kept promises. This was an era of long development and crowdfunding, so when game projects were proposed and took years to actually come out, and a 360 version was promised when the 360 was actually alive, so developers promised a 360 version of Mighty Number 9, you bet your ass they kept that promise. They made Mighty Number 9. Though as time went on, many games that were planned to appear on previous generations just end up not working out. Either they figured the amount of effort it would take to port their game over wouldn't be worth it based on the current install bases, the game was just too intense to run well, or they just didn't feel like it anymore. Mortal Kombat X, Mad Max, Dying Light, Shantae, Half Genie Hero, last gen versions were planned but ended up being cancelled. But Little Big Planet 3 released on PS3. Why? It's not like Sony was doing a ton of PS3 games releasing right alongside PS4 versions. Like, there were so many PS3 games released the year of the PS4. They could have put Gran Turismo 6 on the PS4, Ratchet & Clank Into the Nexus, Puppeteer, Sly Thieves in Time, God of War Ascension. No! Little Big Planet 3! That's the only one that needs to be on both. Hey, they did us a favor. The PS3 wouldn't be the PS3 without Little Big Planet 3 in 2014. So these are all sort of neat. They exist. It's kind of fun. They all run and look worse than their next-gen counterparts. No way. But it's sort of cool to see these games I know of as PS4 titles running on hardware released in 2005. But sometimes, developers go a different route and decide to make exclusive versions of games to run on old systems. I believe this is referred to as stupid. These are sort of cross-gen. I mean, they are and they aren't. Exclusive versions of games for the previous generation. Interesting tactic. And I think Ubisoft takes the cake here for most effort put into a dog idea. It's 2014, and Assassin's Creed Unity is releasing for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and PS4, Xbox One, and PC only. I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised Ubisoft was that quick to make Assassin's Creed a current-gen only game. The last entry, Black Flag, was on everything because it was a launch title for the new consoles, and the next year, bam! Only for the new consoles. But that was because they created an exclusive Assassin's Creed Creed game for the previous gen, Assassin's Creed Rogue, released on the same day as Unity. These are two separate games you need two separate generations of hardware to experience. They did this as an experiment. It was hard for publishers to give up support on this generation because it lasted a lifetime and these systems had huge install bases. They were worried that loads of players were still on 360 and PS3 and would either miss out on the latest Assassin's Creed or wouldn't buy a watered down port. How about an exclusive one just for them? See if there's a reason to keep both of these platforms around. I don't know. This was well into the Assassin's Creed fatigue. People were already getting tired of a new game every year, so what does Ubisoft do? Release 2 Assassin's Creeds on the same day. God, I'm so sick of peanut butter. I wish I had 2 jars instead of 1. I just view this as a waste of development. The team that made this could have made anything but Assassin's Creed for either current or previous gen systems, but no. They had to make another game and a series milked dry on consoles nobody cared about anymore. A similar situation happened with Call of Duty when World at War released for Xbox 360, PS3, and Wii, a separate version released on the PlayStation 2, World at War Final Fronts. A completely separate game. I still don't understand the point of this. Obviously, World at War would have worked on the PS2. It worked on the Wii, so what was the big deal? This was probably them testing the waters, just like with Assassin's Creed Rogue, see if the PS2 audience still cared about new exclusive games in 2008. Sonic Unleashed on the Wii and PS2 released alongside the 360 and PS3 versions. They are completely different games. They follow roughly the same plot and structure, but the levels are all different, so it's like, is this a cross-gen game or just straight up different entities? Sonic the Hedgehog released on the Sega Master System and Sega Genesis. What is this? Again, 2 completely different games. Is this cross-gen? One of my favorite weird examples is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Much like the mainline Pokemon games, the first game was released as 2 separate versions, Blue Rescue Team and Red Rescue Team. Both on different consoles on the same day. Blue was on the Nintendo DS, Red was on the Game Boy Advance. How many people went, I can and I can also with that? I think that's confusing if anything. Cross-gen games became more and more common as the years went on. They were mostly reserved for the kids' games, but lately, look at this. So many games releasing on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and the 4th generation of Xbox consoles. It's becoming commonplace for big AAA games to release across generations like this. One of the greatest games of the generation is debatable whether it's a part of this generation or not, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This was almost an exact repeat of the Twilight Princess situation. The game was announced for Wii U, got delayed so many times, its completion date lined up with the Nintendo Switch's release. Oh god, they didn't mean to! It made for one hell of a launch title and swan song for the Wii U. I mean, the reason for this game being cross-gen wasn't necessarily to give it the biggest install base possible, rather, it was out of obligation. They announced they were working on Zelda for Wii U all the way back in 2013. People bought Wii U's just for this game. They had to release it for the system. And it works. There's really not any cool differences between versions like there was with Twilight Princess on the GameCube and Wii. You can play the game directly on the gamepad, though the original plan was to have the map always down there. That would have been a cool feature exclusive to the Wii U version, but that was scrapped. Both releases look nearly identical. From my experience, the Switch version seems to look and run a bit better, but they're pretty much the same. It's probably a lot of shiny new device bias. Of course the Switch version looks better. Don't tell me I wasted $300. Hell, technically, in some ways, the Wii U version actually loads faster. Again, not by much though. But when we hit the home button and then go back to the game, it needs to reload on Wii U. We also have to install a ton of data, so while the Wii U may have been the original platform for the game, it was definitely pretty optimized for the Switch. Yeah, it's a lot of work to put your game on multiple platforms. I should know. I've played Bubble Bobble. I know everything about video games, but that doesn't stop some franchises from going on every platform conceivable. For example, the LEGO games. You can always count on these being something you call an exterminator for. Just Dance. Yep, multiple entries released on the Nintendo Switch, the Wii U, and the Wii all at the same time, in addition to Xbox 360 and PS3 releases. And then Just Dance 2020 released on just the current platforms and the Wii. To be fair, it made sense not to make a Wii U version. I mean, you can play the Wii game through the Wii U. It's not like you'd be missing out that year. And of course, we can't forget, where's the Wii U version? The sports games. FIFA 2005 ended up being released on the PlayStation 1 in 2004. FIFA 19 released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in 2018. But this one was the Legacy Edition, which meant EA didn't care, and this is just FIFA 17 or something with an updated player roster. But then FIFA 14 in 2013 released for the PS2. Same Legacy Edition tactic of an older FIFA game re-released, but this game came out for the PS3 and PS4, as well as the PSP and PS Vita. The Wii? Not the Wii U though, this is ridiculous. But look at how many versions existed. That's almost as crazy as... No? No, this is pretty sane. Sports games have sort of settled down in terms of platforms supported. Madden barely goes outside of the PlayStation and Xbox consoles anymore and jumped out of the previous generation decently quickly. Persona 5 came out for the PS3 more recently than Madden did. The Madden of the new generation. Cross-generation games are undoubtedly good for the consumer, not forcing everybody to spend hundreds of dollars on a new system to play a game that can technically work perfectly fine on the console they already have. But I'd be lying if I said their existence didn't make things less exciting when a new generation comes along. Why should I care? I can play this game on a tree trunk. What's there to be excited about? I think it just goes to show that the games are truly what matters here. You shouldn't buy a new console just because it's the new console. You should buy it because there are meaningful experiences to have on there. If the games on that platform are already available on the platform you already have, you don't need the new console. But Sackboy has a 5 on the box now. I said don't buy the console, you can buy the games.
What's the recipe for surprising the kids, treating yourself, and ditching dish duty? You're looking at it. Order your Pizza Hut faves like original pan, original stuffed crust, and more at pizzahut.com. No one out-pizzas the Hut.
At SteelSeries, we make gaming gear so you can be anything you want, except one thing: ordinary. Fight the biggest bad guy you can find. Create something nobody's seen before. Now that's beautiful. Why waste your ammo on this guy? He's so good at games he just nades himself to death. It's up to you how far you go, but whatever you do, go for glory.
Five breadsticks for my triple treat. 3 layers deep, 10 Cinnabon mini rolls to eat, and the pizza plus another pizza.
The triple treat box, only from Pizza Hut. Chucky will return.
Welcome home.
Until then, watch the hit series from the beginning, streaming now on Peacock.
These are the employees' cars.
You can do whatever you want to something if it's on your property.
Legally speaking, that's not...
Let's go make a car.
What are you doing to my car? Stealing your hubcaps. It's fine. I'm the new CEO.
American Auto, January 4th on NBC. And watch 2 episodes now on Peacock.
Hey y'all, Scott here. I bought new clothes. That's why they always call me New Clothes Scott. I love designs like this so much. I should go as far as possible with that love.
What kind of tattoo you want? Plaid.
Could've just gotten the Xbox controller. It's a brand new day. I wake up and what do? I buy more useless trash. If I run out of money, I'll just sell another kidney. I don't care. Look, I bought another rice cooker for the collection. That's a core problem when it comes to your everyday video game player. We end up buying a lot of stuff we don't really need? I mean, sure, I don't need Rhythm Heaven Fever. Damn it, I need two. They're obviously products we all want, but don't really need. However, buying new video games brings us entertaining experiences we wouldn't have had otherwise. But we all have those things we really don't need, but sort of kind of want anyways, and game companies know this. That's why they all say, grab the paint, Scott's a moron. I'm not as ashamed as I want it to be. These special editions, products that have a special little paint job that makes you squirm at the thought of not owning it. Even if you have the standard edition of a game console already and it works perfectly fine, you even think it already looks nice and sleek and all that, just when a glacier white PlayStation 4 gets announced, yeah, alright, where do I sign? Special edition game systems have somewhat puzzled me because in many cases, these special editions appeal to hardcore fans who already own the console, so to have them buy a completely new one just for a different paint job, it's a lot to go through. Which is why I think special edition controllers are where it's at. The controllers are the kind of things you usually buy multiples of for your system, so hey, why not pick up the special ones? You can never have enough of this. But here's the thing, controllers are absolutely abused. These things are put through so much, and if you play games, you know you're prone to some thumb grease. To buy a controller based on its looks alone, and with it only being available for a limited time, I almost don't want to use it. I know if I do, it's more susceptible to wear and tear, and if it breaks down, I don't want to buy another one. By the time I have to do that, it's going to be 10 times more expensive online. Have you seen the Cheeto market? People pay top dollar for special trash. Imagine how much I have to pay for a new Halo Reach controller. Who chews on thumbsticks? Special edition controllers. They're always a joy to see, plus you can usually warrant picking these up because you can never have too many controllers. However, I never want anything to ever happen to these. They're too precious. That's why I don't have anybody over anymore.
Yeah, so I kind of have this weird thing where I have to lick every controller that I see.
Donkey Kong! Listen, I'll usually buy something like this when it's either A, related to a game I like, or B, the design makes me swoon. I own a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 controller and have no interest in the game. I feel like I'm on a list somewhere. But sometimes special edition controllers are more trouble than they're worth. Again, that's why nobody's invited over here anymore. You have the one guy that notoriously doesn't bathe his fingers go, yeah, I'll take the gold one. Like, what the f? Don't do that to my controller. But to truly appreciate special edition controllers now, we have to go back to when companies said, do it yourself. People have been customizing their controllers ever since the dawn of time, and if you want to reach a bit, we could consider decals to be the first instance of the special edition. I think a lot of people have seen these Nintendo Power decals for NES controllers. You'd get them with the magazine and just stick them onto your gamepad. These things have always been a thing, still prevalent nowadays. These are the cheapest possible solution to give your controller some flair. The only one I technically have is the controller skin that came with the Sonic Forces bonus edition. Joking hazard? Thank God I read that. But nobody likes talking sticky paper. Everybody wants to talk about controllers that come with paper pre-sticked. Special edition controllers really hit it big during the Nintendo 64 days, and not only were there multiple colors to choose from, but some fancy designs that were definitely harder to come by. Some of these were given away via promotions or sweepstakes or specific catalogs within magazines like the Millennium 2000 controller or the Nintendo Power 100th issue gold one. However, one I own happens to be the Donkey Kong 64 controller. It was a special order item through Nintendo Power, not all too different compared to the standard yellow, but it's hauling the tips with this one. They're bananas. This design makes me way more okay with the standard controller layout. So that's what these things were supposed to be. Many look towards the golden controllers for their daily dose of dopamine, and scream special edition more than crippling debt. So of course there was a gold Nintendo 64 controller, but there was an even golder asterisk controller that is way past rarer. These ones were given away at a Star Fox 64 tournament at Nintendo's E3 1997 booth, and are pretty similar to the standard gold you could get in stores. However, this one had a fancy Nintendo 64 logo on the front. I'd consider the Nintendo 64 to be where special controller variants were truly born. Sure, there were constant revisions of the Sega Genesis controller, for example, but those primarily boiled down to red buttons, black buttons. With the N64 offering 4 controller ports, that obviously meant more controllers were to be sold, so why not sweeten the deal a bit with some designs only a mother could love. These weren't revisions, rather they were for fans of the console and games. But at this time in gaming, special edition consoles were way more prevalent than just controllers. You were lucky if the controller included in the box got any love at all. The PS1 and Sega Saturn dabbled in this here and there, but we really had to take one giant leap of faith into the following generation where we can truly start to see some more special controllers make their debut. The Sega Dreamcast took some notes from the Nintendo 64. See, we have 4 controller ports, you know what that means. It's blue! But the GameCube was where it's at for special variants. I'd say it definitely wasn't on par with the N64, but we have some interesting ones here. One I happen to have is a controller you can only purchase via Club Nintendo Japan, the Luigi controller. Oh god, I can't wait to see what it's like. Who could have thought? Club Nintendo was home to some of the more sought-after special editions for the console. We have a Mario Wario in the standard Club Nintendo design, with the Mario design also being offered by Club Nintendo Europe. I honestly think the most interesting thing about these are the boxes. Not only do I like the official name being Luigi Controller, but they made sure to include denim. I know what you're thinking. I love the GameCube. There were a ton of other designs bundled with limited edition consoles, but what about controllers with special functions? Like, see, I enjoy this, but I just want more. I think I found another choking hazard. The keyboard controller is the white whale of my video game collecting career. I want it, but right around the time I discovered it, it was pricey, no doubt, but definitely obtainable. Now we've officially entered the year 2020, and damn it, there goes my 5th kidney. This was only available in Japan and only for Phantasy Star Online, so you could communicate with other players quickly. Yes, this may have no use to me, but come on, who wouldn't want this? Scribes? Maybe Scribes. Of course, if we're talking limited special controllers during this era, there was of course the Resident Evil 4 controller. Oh, that's nice. What the f? This is no doubt one of the most notoriously bizarre controllers ever created, a chainsaw. Now, of course, one of the iconic enemies in RE4 was the Chainsaw Man. Considering that he uses a chainsaw and you don't, I don't see how immersive this controller really is, but bonus points where bonus points are due, it truly feels like I'm playing a game with a chainsaw. This was also released for the PlayStation 2 and is definitely more of a product of Capcom's than Nintendo's or Sony's. Which that does bring up how third-party companies can definitely put out their own wacky additions, usually in cooperation with companies that specialize in this kind of trash. The Shadow the Hedgehog PS2 controller, yeah, lines at the store for that one. Sony was never the biggest into custom designs, and normally they'll just do new colors, and maybe some special ones here and there, but this is one area where the Redmonders reign supreme. Of all these options, did you really think the publisher of Fusion Frenzy would put out the most controller variants? Now, the original Xbox, they were pretty humble. Here and there we got a few, especially with special edition systems, no biggie. But then, the Xbox 360 came around. Is this a joke? A lot of these are relatively inexpensive, considering I feel that collectors of Xbox stuff are way more endangered comparative to Nintendo and PlayStation collectors. Darwinism is hilarious. But that never stopped Microsoft from putting out just a ton of special edition controllers, many of which were just that, controllers. You could buy them separately from a console bundle or something. Here I have a Halo Reach controller and a Gears of War 3 controller. I do like the overall look of both of them. I think the Gears one has a better overall design, but I love the minimalistic take on Reach's variant. But I bought these for like 10 bucks a pop online. I got this one back in the 360's heyday with my own 14-year-old money. I like this one. It's been my go-to 360 controller ever since. The material used feels really premium, and the overall design being completely grayscale is sleek as all hell. The only problem is some games may tell you hit the yellow button, and now you know my colorblind hell. Weirdly enough, Sony and Nintendo barely dived into the special controller market this generation. The Wii was basically just white for most of its life, and then by the time people stopped caring, that's when they added new colors, but none of these were particularly limited or special. I think the core special Wii remote most jumped to is the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword Edition. Gold with Zelda insignia. It's a fine-looking controller, no doubt, but as one of the only special Wii remotes, But speaking of gold controllers, only available via special editions of GoldenEye 007 was a Golden Classic Controller Pro. I love this thing. It's just gold, and I found it used at a GameStop back in the day. Again, I will reiterate, I love this thing. Now Sony, they had more specific game-based designs than Nintendo, but at least the Wii Remote was a completely new design. You didn't necessarily have to spice it up with fun colors and shapes. The PlayStation 3 controller was derivative of this, which was derivative of this. I can keep going. They just didn't do a ton with this thing outside of mostly colors, but that changed with the PlayStation 4. Look at all these. They really upped their game. We have Uncharted 4, the 20th anniversary of PlayStation. Piss. There are so many options now. Well, looks like Microsoft finally has some competition on their hands. This is fun hell. They even fixed my biggest problem with that silver controller and have the colors displayed here. It's perfect. They even let you create your own custom controller colors online now. They are loony. But hey, this one's grease-proof, a controller that addresses the biggest gaming hurdle. See, I want to play Halo, but I just love no fork spaghetti. Now what did Nintendo do with the Wii U, the console with the most integral controller experience? Nothing. I mean, there was this Wind Waker one, which was only included in the console bundle. They never sold Wii U gamepad separately. But not even the Wii U Pro controllers got any special releases. All we got was white and black colors, but special Wii remotes and Wii U branded boxes were released, all featuring designs based on the Mario cast. And yep, I have twins. I do feel like these character-specific Wii remotes are a bit more cool than the GameCube ones. Certain colors are used on certain parts to represent the character, like the bottom 1 and 2 buttons are brown for his shoes, the plus and minus buttons are yellow for his overall buttons, the back is colored to his overalls in general. Other controller companies had similar ideas when making their own officially licensed Nintendo controllers. I have this Metal Mario Classic controller by PDP. These were primarily made for Smash Brothers for Wii U. It may not be a great controller, but it's not a good controller either. Design though is really cool, just with how shiny and metallic it looks. It almost but doesn't make up for the lackluster feeling buttons. Hori made their own licensed GameCube-like controllers for Wii remotes during Smash Wii U's Shine Time, which are far better, albeit not as good as the real deal. Which was alright, because Nintendo themselves reissued GameCube controllers for Smash Wii U's release, now with a Smash Ball on front. These are GameCube controllers alright, and Nintendo re-released them again for Smash Ultimate. I don't want to hear anybody argue this design is better than the old one. And that brings us to the Nintendo Switch, where special edition controllers are way more prevalent. Special colored Joy-Cons and Pro controllers are finally getting some love. As previously stated, I have the Xenoblade Edition, I am terrible, but I also have the Smash Brothers one, which looks great. You have the silver Smash Ball and white grips, and I can already see paint chipping off. Do you see my problem with special edition controllers? See, I really do like these controllers. They look great, they look cool, but controllers are meant to be used, and I can't use these controllers without ever feeling guilty. They're too rare and valuable. On the other hand, special edition consoles look cool, but they also make much less sense to buy if you already have the console, though the design will hold up for much longer. So, I've come to the conclusion that I won't buy anything ever. I'm not doing it.